welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matt O'Reilly, and I'm joined here tonight by Aaron Prendergast from Gaelic Games Fan TV. Nearly said the old name there. Getting used to old habits and all that, but we'll move on. But delighted to have Aaron on this evening to talk about the games this weekend. And before we get into the podcast this evening, two things. First of all, for our sponsors at Capture Athletics, if you want to get the best gear around like this one that I'm wearing here, go to Capture Athletics to get the best gear around and get some brilliant gear for your club. So make sure you check them out. And congratulations as well. I wanted to pass on congratulations to Limerick Voice, who went to the SM Medias last night and won the award for best paper, I think it was last night, and best digital web digital content or digital layout, which was absolutely brilliant to see. And a few journalists got awards as well. So absolutely brilliant to see the Limerick Voice team get some awards on the night out on student media duty. So well done to them as well. So we'll crack on to the GA this weekend. And Aaron, how you been over the last few days? Like you said to me off air, you're going to the Dublin Meath game at the weekend. Shame it's not in Navan. It's on in Croke Park, but look, that's the way the GA goes, I suppose, with scheduling and fixtures and all that.
Absolutely, yeah. No, cheers, Matthew, for having me on again. Appreciate being on your show. Look, it is an interesting one. Like, I'm obviously going to the game. It's opening weekend of the Championship, Croke Park, and everything else. Like, you should be hugely excited for it. But I do think the appetite for this game probably isn't really hugely there. Like, it is obviously a Leinster quarterfinal, Croke Park. Like, they really should have probably had this game in Park Talchin. Like, it really was the place to have it. Like every quarter final that Dublin have played in the Leinster Championship over the last 10-15 years, as far as I know, has always been outside of Croke Park. So why this one isn't in Croke Park is a little bit strange. Like earlier in the week, I thought maybe there was renovations on in Park Talchin, but I was speaking to Davy Rispin from the We Are Meath podcast during the week, and he was saying that's not the case. But it's the GA's decision, and they're the ones who've obviously made the decision to put the game in Croke Park. So yeah, like, I mean, I'm surprised there's no backlash from Meath. So I thought they would have maybe wanted to, like kind of do a scenario a bit like Kildare from many years ago. But like it is a bit of a shame, because I think most Dublin fans would have enjoyed going to Meath and would have enjoyed the occasion and everything else. It would have made the spectacle a little bit better. But I suppose with it being in Croke Park, obviously the Camogie's on before it, and I think, if the Camogie wasn't on before it, you mightn't even have 10,000 at this game. So, whether they've put the Camogie on before it to try and save themselves a little bit because they know not many people are going to this, I'm not entirely sure, but yeah.
It's a difficult one to comprehend, and of course we'll get on to the Camogie later. League finals, the last weekend of league finals in any of the four sports, so we'll get on to that in a bit. But we will crack on with the first game I have on here. This is coincidentally Dublin against Meath in the Leinster Championship from Croke Park, not Park Talchin. The Leinster Senior Football Championship quarter-final on Sunday, 4:30 on RT2. Now, I don't think there's a matter of discussion about the result. We all know that Dublin are probably going to win this game, but the main topic of discussion this week, and I put out a tweet over this as well on my Twitter page about this game being on in Croke Park rather than Park Talchin. And you said to me on Gaelic Games Fan TV the other night on your podcast, check that out if you haven't already, that basically Meath were setting home advantage because of renovations. But as Davy Rispin said there, I haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast with We Are Meath, or will once we get off here. But like, if he's saying that it is entirely the GA's decision, I am actually shocked that there is no Meath backlash like yourself. Like, Kildare is a prime example as well. Cork, the Parky Rinner Nowhere saga against Kerry, and even Cork had no chance that year. So you're thinking, what's Meath's plan here? Are they going to complain, or what's the story? Obviously, it's Thursday night. They're not going to complain at this stage, but it is a shame that the game is on in Croke Park, because I guarantee you, if the game was on in Park Talchin, we'd be much more excited in a way about this game.
Absolutely, yeah. Like even if they had it as a double header with the Offaly Laois game or something like that, even but yeah, like obviously it's not as if Park Talchin is under renovation, so it's not like going somewhere. If you're gonna go somewhere, you go in your own stadium. So Yeah, like whether they've just been, it's been a final decision. That's it. It's done. There's no coming back. I don't really know. Like it's like from what I think, maybe like this decision has been in the works for a while. Like I think one thing I know for certain is that if Longford had won, it definitely would have been in Omar Park. I know that for certain. So it's a little bit strange that that for whatever reason they're not going with Páirc Tailteann. And for any Meath fans, like you're right to feel aggrieved. Probably haven't played a championship game against Dublin in your own backyard since the 80s. So like it's unfortunate, and why there hasn't been more backlash, I don't really know. Maybe Meath fans are just used to it now. Maybe the whole of Leinster is just like, whatever, let's just get this game over and done with. Like maybe Meath don't want to be putting too much energy into where games should be played and everything else. They just want to play the game and then focus on the group stages. So yeah.
It's a difficult one actually for a Meath point of view, because like they have some exciting young players and they have the capabilities to test Dublin at periods of the game, but then the second half you just feel like Dublin will ease through it in the end. And Denise says here, hello Matthew and Aaron, hope all as well. Looking forward to this week's previews, and thanks Denise for tuning in this evening. But yeah, on Meath for a sec, like they did well enough in Division 2, tested a load of teams in that division. Obviously they drew against Cavan, who beat Monaghan last weekend in the Ulster Championship. They played well in many games. I think they only lost 3 games against Donegal when it didn't really matter, against Cork when it didn't really matter for them, and against Armagh, and any team could lose to Armagh. So what are you expecting from Meath coming to Croke Park? Are you expecting them to kind of park the bus? Are you expecting them to play free-flowing football? What are you expecting them to show in this game on Sunday?
It's a hard one to know, really. It's kind of it's a very, very hard way to prepare. And I was kind of saying this to Davey yesterday, like when you look at how Kildare came to Croke Park in the Leinster semi-final last season, they were very defensive. They got a lot of men behind the ball. They frustrated the living daylights out of Dublin. Obviously, different scenario a little bit in the sense that Dublin were very poor in the league. They were playing in Division 2, playing lower standards. They clearly weren't playing to their best, and they're certainly not playing the same way they've played in the last couple of weeks and in the league. So it's a hard one to know. It's probably not in Colm O'Rourke's remit to be defensive. Like he's been very open in the past, and RTE and everything else, speaking out about defensive football and everything. So I just couldn't see Meath and Colm O'Rourke going to Croke Park and being like, right, let's get every man behind the ball and let's try and frustrate the living daylights out of Dublin. And like they haven't played that way all year, so it doesn't really make sense to play that way. So yeah, like they're probably going to have a go at Dublin, but I think at the same time there probably does need to be an element of caution and trying to keep their heads a little bit, because like if they do concede a couple of early goals, it is a very young team. Their heads could go and they could concede 4 or 5 goals. Like Longford put 3-12 past them. So yeah, it's a tough one, really. Like I think it's one of them where no matter what Meath do, they're probably going to get beaten quite comfortably. And if they do have a go at Dublin, they just need to be careful, because they can't leave themselves too open. And I think going man to man with Dublin would be an absolute bloodbath. So I think they need to mix the two a little bit. Be defensive in certain areas, keep the ball maybe for large parts to try and take this thing out of Dublin. But it is a very young Meath side. It's a very inexperienced team, and regardless of what happens, look, I don't think it will define Meath season, and it certainly won't define Dublin season.
Especially the last few encounters in the Leinster Championship between the two sides. I can remember specifically 2021, Meath could have beat Dublin that day. I think it was 6 points in it at the end. Brian Fenton getting a late few points. And Brian Fenton isn't there. We'll get on to that, of course, in a sec. 2019 was a big one in my memory, because defensively, Meath were absolutely excellent. They were annoying, as you mentioned there, the living daylights out of Dublin. Conor O'Callaghan was getting frustrated. Kieran Kilkenny was getting frustrated. And that was the Dublin team that went on to win 5 in a row. But then down the other end for Meath, they were absolutely tragic in circumstances. Like I looked through my stats on my website and stuff like that, and I think I might be corrected on this, but I think that was the worst attacking performance performance that I've recorded from a Meath team, or from any team for that matter. I think it was like an 18% shot accuracy, which was absolutely horrendous. They scored 4 points that day, but they did annoy them defensively, and that's going to be the key for Meath on Sunday, no doubt about it. Gavin O'Reilly commenting here, will Meath be Dublin's biggest test in Leinster? Yeah, that's another question to ask, maybe. I personally think they will be, to be honest. Like, Kildare don't look to be up at that level in Division 2 even. You look at other teams around it. Westmeath got beaten last weekend. Louth, like if Samuel Roy gets injured, what happens then? So would you agree that Meath they're the best team to come up against Dublin in Leinster?
It's a hard one to know, really. Like, I still think Louth are probably a bit more experienced, a bit more battle hardened than Meath. Like interestingly enough, like only one player who played against Dublin last time out in the league last year is still in the Meath panel, and I'm pretty sure that's Jordan Morris. Everyone else is not there. So it's a completely brand new team. It's going to be a completely brand new experience for the majority of those Meath players. I know they played in Croke Park last year. It's a hard one to know. Like, I think Meath they will be coming in raw. They will be coming in. They won't have the scars of previous games. Like, obviously, as you said, the game in 2019 or 2020. Like, they won't be coming in having been absolutely battered, in previous years. So it wouldn't surprise me that in the opening 10, 15 minutes, you saw Meath give Dublin a bit of a game and maybe score a goal, maybe go 1 or 2 points up. But I think the more the game goes on and Dublin start racking in the goals, especially with it being such a young team, and Colm O'Rourke, although he does have a lot of experience playing in Croke Park and winning All-Irelands, and he knows all about coming up against Dublin, but as a manager, he doesn't, so it's, at least at this level. So it's going to be very, very tough to see how they react to it. But I'd probably still look at Louth as the toughest. I say toughest test. I still think Dublin would probably beat both teams by 10 plus. But I still think Louth are still slightly ahead of Meath, but not by much. Like, if Louth and Meath played each other in the championship, there wouldn't be much between them. And obviously, Meath got the better of Louth in that game earlier in the year. If Louth and Meath played each other 6 or 7 times, it'd probably be 3 wins each. There really isn't much between them. So, like, if it was in Park Talchin, I do think this would be the toughest test. Albeit I still don't think it would be that much of a test, but it would probably be under 7 or 8 points if it was in Park Talchin. Whereas in Croke Park, it could be 10 plus. Could even be 15 plus. It really could.
Definitely so. And Kieran has a comment in here. Poor Meath could be at the end of a backlash from Dublin after the league final defeat to Derry. That's a big kind of omen as well going into this game. And I wanted to ask you about Brian Fenton as well coming into my head just now. As things stand, as we're recording this, Brian Fenton is suspended for the game against Meath. And to be honest, it's probably a newer thing for GAA fans, because usually when a complaint goes to Congress or a complaint goes to the authorities, it gets overturned. The red card gets overturned. But this wasn't the case with Brian Fenton for the smack that he gave to Derry player. I think it was Ewan Mulholland, I think it was in the league final. Do you think it was the right decision? Do you think it's the right decision that Brian Fenton's suspension has stood?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn a little bit on this one, because on one instance, when you look back at the instance, I thought the red card was quite harsh in some ways. Like, fair enough, he did raise his hand to him, but I think all in all, like, Mulholland probably did go down quite easily, and ended the game and everything else, especially after getting a mad smack in the ribs as well. Like, he was obviously going to retaliate a little bit. So there probably is a part of me that thinks it could have been rescinded. But what was there? Because I think when it comes to rescinding red cards, for me, it has to be blatantly obvious. You know what I mean? Like, I think the Fenton red card is a very subjective decision. Like, I don't think it was a red card, but I can completely understand why people do think it's a red card, and it was given as a red card. I don't think it was, I don't think you'd sit here and say it was 100% the wrong decision and they have to overturn it. So in some ways, I think it probably is the right decision. Even if I don't think it was a red card, but I just hope they do this going forward in terms of other red card incidents. Like, I think if it is a red card, and I think we're all in agreement that it is, and I think the officials and every GA person knows it's a red card, then it shouldn't be overturned. That way. So yeah, that's kind of how I'd look at it anyway.
Will this be a new opportunity for Dublin in many ways? Like Brian Fenton out of the team, maybe a few chances for Padder Coffey-Byrne or Killian McGuinness to start midfield. Do you think it could be the start of maybe a midfielder to come out of the blue for Dublin and perform well against Meath in this game and maybe stake a claim for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I suppose Fenton's been the main constant in the midfield over the last 6-7 years. I actually can't remember the last time he missed the championship game. You'd be going back a long time. There's been a lot of players who drop in now the Dublin team, like in championship or in league, but Brian Fenton's one who's just always there. And he's always putting his hand up to play. Which fair play, when you think about it. But yeah, look, it's an opportunity maybe for Padder or Coffey-Byrne maybe to come in, Tom Lahiff, Brian Howard. I think it will be interesting, all right, and it will be a little bit unusual, and maybe it might be an area that Meath can get on top of ever so slightly. But at the same time, Tom Lahiff, very good player. I thought he actually played very well against Derry, in fairness. Padder or Coffey-Byrne, Brian Howard could go in there. So yeah, I think overall it definitely will be an interesting opportunity, and it's probably, with the fact they are playing Meath, it's not the biggest deal in the world. And again, if you get this suspension for a group stage game or an All-Ireland quarter-final or a semi-final, it could be Uri. But I think against Division 2 opposition, I think Dublin should still be fine in that area.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Dublin GA, before we get on to a prediction on how big the win is going to be, Dublin GA actually posted their squad on social media during the week. Cluxton, McCaffrey, and McCarthy are all back in there. McCarthy's going to be a part of the captaincy as well. The right decision. I know they perform well in the league, but to bring these guys back, it's a major boost for the rest of the Dublin team, even though some people are probably going to be upset at the team that they are going to lose their place.
Yeah, I think so. It will be interesting, all right, because McCarthy did play against Monaghan in the opening game. He came off the bench. I think McCaffrey played a couple of games as well. I think he might have played against Mayo and then maybe went off injured. Obviously Cluxton hasn't played. So I think Cluxton's the obvious one. I think you bring him back in. He came back in the semi-finals, the Leinster semi-finals last year, albeit the quarter-final wasn't in Croke Park. So maybe with this game being in Croke Park, Cluxton might play or whatever. It's going to be interesting. There probably isn't a real need or a back Fitzsimons or McCarthy. I think they could do with game time. And I think, it's with the Leinster Championship and everything else, it probably is a bit of a, it has always felt like a bit of a pre-season feel before the All-Ireland. So, it might be a chance for Mick Fitzsimons to, get back up to match fitness. Same obviously for Cluxton. Same for McCarthy potentially as well, McCaffrey, Mannion. So, yeah, I would expect to see the majority of them involved. Whether they all start, we probably won't know until the ball's thrown in.
What's interesting, actually, from the article on the Independent going on this, James McCarthy's been named as a midfielder, Killian McGuinness as a forward. So that was just interesting to me. Look at the squads there. But in regards to predictions, Denise actually had an interesting comment here about predictions. Last year, Kildare were in no way outstanding as this year, and yet went all the way with Dublin and got within 2 points of beating them. I'd say it'll be a 5-point Dublin win here. I think it'll be tighter than people think. You obviously don't think it'll be tighter than people think. You think that Dublin will cruise home. I think, honestly, Partalton, if it was on in Partalton, I think this could have been a potential banana skin for Dublin to struggle. But now it's on Croke Park. Dublin can just struck their stuff, and I think they should win comfortably. And obviously, you think the same way.
Absolutely, yeah. I know that Kildare game last year, it was a bit of an anomaly. Kildare did struggle last year as well. They barely stayed up in Division 2. Maybe not as bad as this year. And you'd argue Meath are coming in better form into this game than Kildare were last year, if that makes sense. But I think the big difference is how much better Dublin have looked in comparison to last year. And even the fringe players, the likes of Ross McGarry, Keane Murphy, Killian McGuinness, Killian O'Gara, all these lads have looked very, very good. We're forgetting as well, against Derry, there was no Lee Gannon, there was no Costello. Maybe Costello comes back in here as well. And it is a very young Meath side. The majority of that Kildare team, they'd obviously beaten Dublin in the league the season previous. They'd given Dublin a good run in the league earlier in that year as well, in the opening game in Division 2. So I think, And I think Mead definitely, I think Mead have the potential in the opening 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to ruffle Dublin's feathers a little bit. But my question would just be, how will Mead react to conceding goals, to falling behind? Because that's something that this very young and inexperienced Mead team haven't had to deal with too often. You know, and playing the team the level of Dublin, they haven't really had to too often. So yeah, I probably would go with Dublin 10 plus. I'd probably go 11 or 12 points.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that Dublin are just a serious team at the moment, and Meath is just unfortunate they didn't get their home venue for this game, and there might be complaints later on the week for today, this evening or Friday, but we'll have to see how it plays out. On the same side as the Leinster draw, you have Offaly against Laois, who didn't play last weekend. It's on at Port on Saturday at 7 p.m. And interestingly enough, out of the Camogie and the Gaelic football this weekend, this is the only game not shown on streaming services or TV whatsoever. So it's quite an interesting stat there. It's on 7 p.m. in Tullamore on Saturday. So, like, Laois won Division 4. Offaly were close enough to relegation to Division 4 and then got a late run towards the end of it. Beat sides like Wicklow and beat Limerick unconvincingly in many ways. And that's a Limerick team that are struggling to get a win in many ways. So, like, do you think Laois have a chance here against Offaly? I know Offaly have good young players like Cormac Egan and Jack Bryan that are in the panel. You have Declan Kelly there as manager as well. You'd be kind of hoping from an Offaly point of view that they'd come up to the level right now. But, like, Laois have a serious chance here.
They definitely do. Like, in Laois are the side that are coming in with more momentum, and there's absolutely no doubt about it. Like, following a very impressive Division 4 league campaign, and yeah, like, it probably hasn't really clicked for Offaly so far this year. A lot of the younger lads, like the under 20 lads, probably haven't really found the groove, and you're probably waiting for Offaly to click into gear, but it just hasn't really happened. It is interesting, like, in previous years, Offaly have had very decent league campaigns, but then poor championships. Like, they've gone out and lost to a Wexford or something of that nature. Obviously, last year lost to Louth in the Leinster semi-finals, but generally, when they've had a decent league campaign, they have followed it up with maybe a slightly disappointing result in Leinster. So maybe now, with the fact they've had a poor league, they'll go into the championship. Maybe, you know, it might flip the other way, but I probably would fancy Laois, in all honesty. I think Evan O'Carroll has looked phenomenal. Paul Kingston, Mark Barry, and I think Justin McNulty's got a real tune out of Laois. And Laois might even be a team that could contest getting out of Division 3 next year. They've looked very, very good in Division 4. So I think I would fancy Laois. And I think, to be honest, I think this game might be a bit mental. Like, we've seen a few crazy scorelines in Leinster Championship games in the last few years, and I think this could be something mad. It could be like a 4-12 to a 3-18 or something like that. I think this could be a little bit crazy. A shame it's probably not on TV, to be fair.
Yeah, it could have been shown on TV, really, on GA Go, because actually on Saturday, all you have is a few Camogie finals, which is Division 1B and 3A and things like that. And you also have Down and Antrim in the Ulster Championship on BBC Two Northern Ireland. You have no other games on Saturday, so there could have been an opportunity there for this game to be on, no doubt about it. But at the same time, and for the record, actually, Offaly will win the game. I do think the young players will come up to the level, but it will be tight, as you said, this game in particular. But what's the mentality going into this game? I think Will O'Callaghan said this on social media, that both sides would want to win the game regardless of the scenario. The thing is, this is a rivalry and both sides would want to win. But then if you win, you're into a semi-final against Dublin and Croke Park, where you're inevitably going to get hammered. So what do you think the mentality is for both of these counties going into this game?
Yeah, I think it'd be much better for Laois if they went into the semi-final, just because Laois have had a very, very good year. They've won the majority of their games. If they go in against Dublin and get beat by 15, 16 points, let's say, it won't really. They've already still had a very, very good season. They've won the Division 4 title. It might look, taking an absolute battering might affect them, and it could maybe derail them a little bit going into the Tailteann Cup. But I think with an experienced manager there, like Justin McNulty, I think they'll still be able to bounce back. As for Offaly, like, very young sides, if they were to be on the receiving end of an absolute battering against Dublin, then going into the Tailteann Cup, where things went very wrong last year as well, and obviously having had a quite disappointing Division 3 campaign, he'd be a little bit worried. So It's one of them. It's unfortunate for either. Like, I don't think either would really want to play Dublin, but at the same time, it is an opportunity to play in Croke Park, albeit you're going to be on the receiving end of a hammer. And it's the way the championship is structured. The provincial championships are a little bit all over the place. Like, realistically, Dublin Meath should be the Leinster semi-final, and Dublin versus Offaly or Laois should be the quarter-final. But unfortunately, that's just how the provincial championships work at the best times.
Yeah, Gavin has commented here about Offaly, saying Offaly hasn't looked right since the semi-final defeat to Lough last year, and that is a fair point. Like, even in Division 3 this year, they've looked very poor. In the Tailteann Cup, as you mentioned previously, Aaron, against Wexford, they got absolutely hammered in that game, unexpectedly, may I add as well. So, like, before we get on to other games, like, it's a worry for Offaly when you look at the young talent coming through, all Ireland champions at under 20 level in 2021. You have Declan Kelly coming in as coach as well. The under 20 winning manager from that season as well. And there are players that have stepped up and played for Offaly. The likes of Lee Pearson's got the captain's armband there. You have Cormac Egan, you have Jack Bryan all in the panel already. So, like, if Offaly were to take a few hammerings this season after a poor league campaign, it'd be just worrying for them, really, moving on to the next few years.
Absolutely, it will be, most certainly. Like, and it is a fair point actually, since the Offaly game, and I was at that game. Obviously, it was the precursor to the Dublin Kildare game. It was in Croke Park watching the game go to extra time and everything else. And Offaly probably nearly should have won it. Like, they had a huge amount of chances towards the end of normal time to finish Loud off and didn't take them. And yeah, like, I haven't heard too much about Keane Farrell this year. Like, and even some of the other big players, more experienced players like Anton Sullivan and whatnot, don't seem to have hit the same heights as previous seasons. They probably have had a good few injuries as well. But yeah, I just think because they've struggled in Division 3, like, fair enough, if they were to win this, that would give them a lot of confidence and fairness, and it would boost them. But if they were on the receive, there's probably no right answer really, like, in terms of whoever gets on a receiving end to Dublin. But yeah, I probably would still think Laois will come through.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Offaly in this game as a matter of interest, but we'll have to see who's right on Saturday evening. We're moving on to the other side now, and this Kildare against Wicklow on GA Go on Sunday at 1:45 in Portlaoise. This, and we talked about Meath and Dublin being a potential banana skin if it was on in Park Talton, and it's ifs, buts and maybes. Wherever this game is on, this is a banana skin, no doubt about it, because Kildare lost every game in Division 2. Wicklow coming off, and I know they got relegated themselves in Division 3, but they're coming off a brilliant win last week against Westmeath. The Westmeath side that would seem to be on a high. So, like, Oisin McConville's side, could they get the unthinkable done on Sunday?
Yeah, look, I mean, if you can, I think if Westmeath were playing Kildare this weekend, I think most people would fancy Westmeath. I think they'd be the favourites, given Westmeath winning the Division 3 title and everything else, and playing in a further division than Kildare, and Kildare obviously in free fall. So yeah, I think Wicklow definitely have a massive chance. It will be interesting. Like, obviously we only got to see the highlights of the Wicklow Westmeath game. Like, did Westmeath play very badly, or did Wicklow just do really well? Like, let's not forget Wicklow were relegated from Division 3. They obviously won one game against Limerick and everything else, but they are a Division 4 side essentially. Kildare obviously now a Division 3 side, but it's hard one to know. Like, Kildare are very fragile, so if Wicklow can start strong, and Oisin McConville is going to have a game plan, like, they're probably going to have a lot of men behind the ball, frustrate Kildare. I think McConville will definitely be looking at what Fermanagh done to them at the start of the league under Kieran Donnelly. Like, I think very similar template to how Wicklow will approach the game. And yeah, like, I think the first half will be very interesting, because if Wicklow can stick with Kildare and stick in front, Kildare could collapse. In saying that, though, I still think Kildare have enough quality, and I just think, as bad as Kildare's year has been, there has to be a response. And I think to lose to Wicklow would be the low, like, no disrespect to Wicklow or anything. Like, they're obviously going down to Division 4, but I think if they were to lose this, considering how bad their year has been, I think it would just be an extremely dark day for Kildare, even more so than previous years. But I do think Kildare might just nick it. They might just nick it.
Yeah, he has potential for a shot, but Kildare, they're well capable of a bad performance, but we'll see if they have that on Sunday. Evelyn asked a question about Laois and Offaly. If it goes to a draw, her prediction, would there be extra time and penalties? The answer, Evelyn, is yes, there will be extra time and penalties. So hopefully you'll be happy enough with the drama there that would unfold as a result of your prediction there. But for Kildare, like, I think, honestly, it's more important for Kildare to win this game than Wicklow. And I know it's brilliant. It'll be a brilliant story if Wicklow go on and win this game. But Wicklow have already achieved the unthinkable in beating Westmeath. For Kildare, if they were to lose this game, Glenn Ryan, the pressure on him, if it wasn't already, would be through the roof. Because, like, if they were to lose, no disrespect again, they performed very well last weekend. But if Kildare were to lose to Wicklow, you might as well just pack the bags and say, look, season over, lads. Because this has been an absolute travesty from first whistle to last. So even going into the Tailteann Cup, if that was the case for Kildare. So, and as well as that, the Tailteann Cup as well. If the Kildare players are going to show fight in this game, there's no doubt they have quality. Daniel Flint, Dara Kieran, Jimmy Hyland, Kevin O'Callaghan, Kevin Feely. There are some quality players in that Kildare team. And they proved it last year, beating Roscommon in the All-Ireland Championship. But if they lose this game, they are in the Tailteann Cup this weekend. So, like, if there's going to be fight in this Kildare team, it has to be this weekend, nothing else.
Absolutely. And, like, if they were to lose to Wicklow, you know, like, I don't know, you'd argue, like, they mightn't even get out of group in the Tailteann Cup. Like, that's how bad things are for Kildare. Now, in fairness, obviously, I think it's 3 teams who get out of group, so they probably would get out of it. But even at that, like, would they progress? Would they go far in the competition? Probably not. Like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for Kildare to end up in the Tailteann Cup, but only if it goes in a similar way to how Meath approached it last year. But yeah, like, I think it's a massive game. It will be interesting to see. Like, I don't know if Kieran's going to be back or Jimmy Hyland. I think even if those two aren't there, there's enough talent in Kildare County, you know, in the county, like with the under-20s and everything else. There's enough talent to put a starting 15 out that can beat this Wicklow team. As good as Wicklow have been, don't get me wrong, it was a great win against Westmeath. But I do just think that win was maybe a slight flash in the pan type of mad result, which sometimes we do tend to get in Leinster when obviously Dublin aren't involved. But yeah, I do think Kildare will come through, but I do think it will be close. And funny enough, actually, the last time these two played each other, I think it was 2 years ago, like, Kildare absolutely hammered them. And I think it was like 15 or 20 points or something like that. So again, in terms of, like, regression, like, like, how bad of a look would it be if they were to lose? Do you know that way?
And I remember results in 2020 as well. Wicklow were on the back of beating Wexford in the Leinster Championship, and then they played Meath, and most people thought it'd be a shock eventually in that game. And then Gerard Morris scores a hat-trick, and Meath scores 7 goals. So, like, it isn't among the realms of possibility that Kildare could just let off the leash here and win the game. I do think Kildare will win the game. For now, I think it'll be tight, but I wouldn't be surprised if they let off the leash in this game, just to show the rest of the country that they're back. And it's a huge game for Kildare, so I am going for a Kildare victory like Aaron in this game. And sticking on the same side of the Leinster draw, the last quarter-final this weekend, it is Louth against Wexford on Sunday at 4 p.m. in Portlaoise as well. It's a double-header on GA Go. Louth have performed well. They have stayed up in Division 2, fair play to them. But as you outlined on your page on Instagram, Aaron, Wexford are in very good form at the moment. They won 5 out of their 7 games in Division 4. They absolutely obliterated Carlow last weekend. You have Mark Rossiter on form. You have Sean Nolan on form. Ben Brosnan still contributing off the bench. So, like, Wexford have every chance of winning this game. But having said that, Louth look to be the slight favourites for this one.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, if Wexford were playing Kildare this week, I'd actually probably tip Wexford to win, just because Wexford have the scoring power maybe that Wicklow don't have. And considering how, like, because Wexford would have the ability, in my opinion, to go 6 or 7 points up against a team like Kildare in the opening 15 minutes, and I don't think this Kildare team would recover. But in terms of Wexford, or in terms of Louth, like, Louth are obviously a very serious veteran side, not veteran team, but, like, they got to the Leinster final last year. I think they've been playing at a much higher level, you know, than anything obviously Wexford have come up against so far this year. I would still expect Louth to come through it, but it will be interesting. It will be interesting because Wexford, like, they're they're putting away Division 4 teams like as if it were Dublin that were playing them, or a Division 2 side. Like when you can look at the margin of victories, like 21 points against Carlow is absolutely some going. So it'd be very, very fascinating. Like I'll probably miss this game because I'll be watching the Dublin Meath game, but I definitely will be keeping an eye on it to see how it goes. And you would expect Louth to come through, but again, like this could be a real back and forth, bit of a classic game, to be honest. And like if I was a neutral fan this weekend, I'd probably be sitting down to watch this game rather than the Dublin Meath game, because I think this could be a real back and forth and high scoring, and it could be a really great game of football to watch. Like both teams will go for it.
You might be making me think a little bit about what games I'll do stats on Aaron at the weekend. Will I do this one, or will I do Meath and Dublin? But like, yeah, it is an interesting one, as you mentioned there. Like Louth of Samuel Roy, Kieran Downey, Kieran Keenan, all them players as well. They're playing outside kind of their comfort zone in RD though, and I think honestly, in the league they won 3 games, and the one game that they won away from RD was against Kildare, and Kildare struggled like hell in the league, let's be honest. So is there an opportunity for Wexford to beat Louth, considering Louth are kind of out their comfort zone of RD? Maybe it's just it's just me being rambling or whatnot, but like Wexford have a serious chance of maybe causing a shocker.
They definitely do. One thing I do think back to though is last year when they played Meath in the Tailteann Cup. I do remember Wexford were coming in and a lot of good momentum. They'd beaten Offaly quite comfortable, and you were thinking, going up against a very fragile Meath side, what we all perceived at the time, I think we all thought Wexford had what it took to go and beat Meath, and that didn't happen. Like Meath absolutely blew them out of the water. So you're hoping Wexford learn from that. I think the opening 10-15 minutes will be huge, because if Louth build up an early lead, then maybe all chaos could break loose. But considering the form that Wexford are coming in, there's no reason why they can't give Louth a good game. Like the gap between them and a Louth isn't that big in my opinion. Like Louth were a Division 4 side only 3 or 4 years ago, so there's no reason why Wexford can't beat them and can't give them a game. But I do just think Louth, having been playing at a higher level, having had the exposure of playing Dublin on a couple of occasions in the last few years, I think they'll still have enough to come through it.
Yeah, I'll back Louth as well. I think they're a good side at the moment, and Wexford are Division 4 for a reason. But then again, like in Division 4, they only lost 2 games against Laois, and Laois were by far and away the best team in that one, and a dodgy penalty decision against Leitrim. So look, Wexford are still on the right road to recovery. I do think Louth will just go over the line this one, but I do think this will be a cracker of a game, no doubt about it. We'll move on to the Ulster's quarterfinals, and this weekend it isn't the glamour side of the draw, if you like. It's the side of the draw with both the Chancel Cup teams and Armagh. It is Fermanagh against the Orchard County on Sunday, 2 p.m. on BBC Two Northern Ireland. And when these sides faced off in the league, it was a tight enough encounter. Armagh won out in the end, but you'd expect Armagh to win this game anyway in the championship.
Yeah, definitely. I think you would. Like, obviously in Brewster Park, Fermanagh do have the capability to make it a tough game, and obviously winning the last game of the league against Cavan, albeit a game that relegated them, will give them a bit of momentum. But yeah, like Armagh have to win, like especially on this side of the draw. They've been very fortunate maybe in back-to-back years that the draw has been the way it's been. But yeah, like I think you'd expect Rian O'Neill, Stephen Campbell, all their more bigger players to feature. The bug in the camp should surely be gone now. It's been 2 weeks. Pitches, there should be pitches available and everything else. The weather has been quite nice. Well, today was I don't know what it's like in Armagh, to be fair, but like I think all in all, you should be okay in terms of that. So yeah, I'd expect Armagh to come through. Fermanagh might make it a bit of a test, but I would still think Armagh will be relatively comfortable, probably 5 or 6 point win.
Yeah, I think there should be as well. It should be an easy enough game for Armagh, and Fermanagh, they'll go into the Tailteann Cup thinking they could easily win this competition if they take it seriously. They did really last year, and look what happened. But for Armagh in particular, like you mentioned, the easy sides of the draw again. Like, is there more pressure now this year for Armagh to get to an Ulster final? I know they're already in the Sam Maguire, because of the placings and all that, but like it'd be big for them to get to the Ulster final, because they haven't won an Ulster since 2008. Like other than last year, they haven't got to an Ulster final since 2008 as well. Like for Armagh to really stake a claim on the All-Ireland campaign. They need to do something extraordinary, like reach a semi-final and an Ulster final and potentially win an Ulster championship. There's no excuses other than this.
No, absolutely, yeah. Like the pressure is definitely on them. It was on them last year, and I think it's equally as on them, probably similar this year. Just because again, if they were on the other side of the draw, like would they get through Derry in a quarter final? You probably wouldn't say they would. It'd be very tough. They'd give them a game, don't get me wrong, but I think Derry, you would say, with the form that they're in, it'd be very tough to beat them. And then you've got Donegal, Tyrone, Monaghan, just all tougher games. And especially being on this side of the draw, I think it allows Armagh to put a couple of wins together, build a bit of confidence, and then it's a one-off game. And then you just need a game plan that works on the particular day. So, and especially with the likes of Rian O'Neill obviously not having featured too often in the league, this is the perfect time to bring them in, get them up to speed, get them up to confidence and everything else, get the Armagh team taking along, and pushing on to an Ulster final. So I think it's definitely the pressure's on, because if they were to slip up against either Fermanagh, Down, or Antrim, I think McGeady would. I couldn't see him being there next year if that happened. He mightn't be there anyway, but I think if they were to lose to a Fermanagh, Down, or Antrim, it'd be a very, very bad setback for Armagh football.
It would definitely, and there's huge pressure on Armagh, especially not winning the Division 2 title. I thought that was a huge opportunity to win a national trophy in Croke Park. They failed to do it, and that was the big thing for Armagh. And Kieran has a comment here about Armagh, I think it is. Losing that league final to half a Donegal team could be the difference between McGeady getting another year, regardless of how the championship goes. Only an Ulster title would save his bacon. And that's absolutely right here. I think, honestly, I do agree with you. I think he needs to win an Ulster title. It's absolutely vital that Armagh do that. We both agree that Armagh will win the game at the weekend. But moving on to the last game that we're going to discuss, and bring us on nicely to the last game, Gavin has this comment. Pressure on Down to get to Sam at the same time. We'll see now. Down are facing Antrim this weekend in the Ulster quarter-final at 6 p.m. on WK2 Northern Ireland on Saturday. And it is, as Gavin mentioned there, huge pressure on Down, because after the Division 3 final, losing to Westmeath, as of right now, during the Tailteann Cup, the right road to recovery starts on Saturday. They have to beat Antrim to have any chance of staying in Samagor.
Absolutely, yeah. You'd fancy Down all day long. Like, they beat Antrim fairly comfortably in the league. Antrim obviously had a fairly inconsistent league campaign, beating Wicklow on the final day. But yeah, look, Down to be fair, like in a lot of games Down have played, like they've either beaten teams comfortably or then they haven't beaten Westmeath. Like that's how their season has gone. Like every other game has been a fairly comfortable win. Like even when they played Clare, they beat them out of gate. And a lot of the games they've played. So I don't know, like it'd probably be something similar. Like if Down start strong and start fast, or Murdoch, Pahavern, like I think they'll be too strong for Antrim. And it's hard to really know where Antrim are going. Like under Andy McEntee, they've had a good year in Division 3, staying up, but it's just you kind of wonder like what is the aim or what's the goals. They probably are quite a good bit behind the rest of the Ulster Championship right now, in my opinion. But yeah, I would think Down would be too strong. And look, maybe local derby, everything else, maybe Antrim might give a good game. Like I think 2 years ago in the league, Antrim nearly beat Down, so that might maybe stand to them. But yeah, I would fancy Down to win, probably by 4 or 5 as well, actually.
Yeah, I think Down should win this game as well. But just a question in regards to Down and Armagh, because we're both thinking that they'll win this weekend. Who's under more pressure, in your opinion, to get to the Ulster final, Down or Armagh?
I think Armagh, definitely, because Down, like Armagh have the better team. They've been playing in Division 1. They've been playing at a higher level for a long time now. Kieran McGeeney's been there longer than Conor Laverty. So yeah, pressure. There isn't any pressure on Down, in my opinion, actually, to be honest with you. I know they want to get to the All-Ireland series and everything like that, but I do think when you're playing a side like Armagh, who were in the Ulster final the season previous, beat them fairly comfortably, I do think there'd be pressure maybe on Down to make it a bit more of a game. I think if they were to be absolutely hammered again like last year, it probably would. It wouldn't be a good look. You'd probably wonder, are Down actually making progress? But I don't think the pressure will be on them the same way as it would be on Armagh.
And before I'd actually agree with you. I think there is more pressure on Armagh and myself as well. Before we get on to the Camogie, like Fermanagh and Antrim, do you think either of them have a chance at the Tailteann Cup this year?
Yeah, I think Fermanagh probably be one of the favourites, depending on who ends up in the Tailteann Cup. I think I'd look at Fermanagh as being one of the teams that could definitely push for it. They obviously had a disappointing Tailteann Cup last season, but I definitely think under Kieran Donnelly, they'd be more than. I think the big thing for them is when they get to Croke Park, like semi-finals, probably how they play football maybe isn't necessarily suited to Croke Park. They don't get to play there too often. But yeah, like Garvin Jones in phenomenal form. I would fancy Fermanagh to give a real crack at that. Antrim had a decent year last year as well, in fairness. So they mightn't be a million miles off either.
Yeah, exactly. So like Fermanagh could easily win the competition, but then you could have Down in there, you could have Kildare in there. We'll have to see in the next few weeks. Indeed, and that's the football wrapped up. So we will move on to the last weekend of league finals, and it is the very Camogie League Finals this weekend. And the first game is on in Croke Park, and Aaron said he's going to the Dublin meet. He might catch the end of this at 2:30 live on RT2. It is Tipperary against Galway, the Division 1A final. And for both sides, they had a decent enough league campaign. Like Tipperary won 4 games. They won 4 games in a row after losing to Waterford. And as a matter of interest, I am going to bring up the stats and scores for both sides here. So we'll start off with Tipperary, their journey to the final. To give a bit of context, so they did lose to Waterford on the first day out. They beat then Galway, Cork, Kilkenny. That's an impressive 3 in a row to win there, especially against the big 3. And then hammered Clare out the game by 4-19 to 7 points on the last game of the league campaign. They averaged a score rate of 2.13 per game and averaged a concession rate of 1.9 per game. You look at their scores here. Emer McGrath, outstanding form from her, 4 goals and 33 points. And worth noting as well, Caught Devan is out till May for Tipperary. So for Emer McGrath to step up and provide to be the main player of this team is absolutely brilliant from Emer McGrath herself. Grace O'Brien with 2 goals and 4 points. Roisin Howard with 6. Casey Hennessy's up there as well. Mary Burke. You have Karen Kennedy from the defensive line, scored 2 goals. So brilliant performances from her. So good scores there from a Tipperary point of view. We'll move on to Galway. Their journey to the final. They beat Clare by 17 points to 8. They then lose to Tipperary on the second day out, but then beat Kilkenny by 6 points, beat Waterford by a point, and then beat Cork in the last game of the season by 5 points with an impressive Carrie Dolan performance that day, scoring 10 points. From the wing forward there. They've scored 269. That's 15 points per game. The lack of goals is probably a concern for Galway, for Colin Murray's side. And they've conceded an average 11 points per game. So they don't concede much goals. They don't score much goals either. You look at their scores, obviously Carrie Dolan way up the top there, 38 points, 6 from play. She's been absolutely brilliant from frees. Aoife Donoghue won 6, Niamh Nyland 8 points. Ailish O'Reilly's been brilliant as well. And you have other players like Orla McGrath, Siobhan McGrath there in the panel as well. And worth noting for Galway, they have 2 brilliant players coming into the panel. I was listening to Sarah O'Donovan from Off the Ball this morning saying that Niamh Kilkenny, number 1, has come back into the panel. I think she had her son last year and she's come straight back into the panel. So brilliant, determination from her. Sarah Dervin, there's no sign of her, but to have Niamh Kilkenny back in the panel is great for Colin Murray's side. And as well as that, Niamh Mallon from Down, a good scorer for the Down Camogie team over the last 2 seasons, has actually gone to Galway because of job opportunities in the Connacht County. So 2 brilliant additions to have to the Galway team this year. But for Tipperary, firstly, Aaron, it's a major opportunity to win a trophy in Croke Park at the expense of Galway, Cork, Kilkenny and Galway.
Absolutely, yeah, a massive opportunity for Tipperary. And as you said, in terms of looking at both teams, Tipperary have been scoring more freely. They've definitely been looking the better. They obviously beat Galway quite comfortably the last time out. Emer McGrath scored 3-7 that day. So I think all in all, yeah, you probably would fancy Tipperary. Galway maybe have looked strong enough defensively, but maybe on the other ends, aside from Carrie Dolan, they probably don't really have too many scoring threats really. So yeah, you probably would look towards Tipperary, I think, to be too strong. And yeah, it's a massive opportunity in Croke Park to win a major piece of silverware. And I think, to be fair, I'd fancy them to do it.
And for Tipperary, if they were to win the league campaign without Caught Devan, who was absolutely brilliant in last year's All-Ireland campaign in particular, scored that brilliant goal, obviously, against Antrim in the quarterfinal in Croke Park. If Tipperary were to win the league without her the team for the whole league campaign, what does that say for their All-Ireland chances? Because usually it's been Cork, Galway, Kilkenny. Could Tipperary be the next team to come into it? And Waterford reaching the final last year, it's only going to be good for Camogie in general.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I think Tipperary, because Tipperary wasn't a Tipperary who lost to Waterford last year. I think in the run up, yeah, and obviously Tipperary were massive favourites, obviously going into that game, and I think a lot of people expected Tipperary to get the better of Waterford, and it didn't quite translate, obviously, on the day. But yeah, I definitely think so. Like I think it shows, I suppose, a lot of that there's more players than just one star, if that makes sense, and yeah, I think for Tipperary to get the silverware and go on into the Camogie Championship, as you said, it has been largely dominated by Cork, Galway and Kilkenny. I can't remember the last time a side other than them three won it. So I think it would be great to see Tipperary make a push at it. And considering how good they've looked in the league so far, beating teams fairly comfortably week in, week out, I'd fancy them to do it this weekend. And yeah, look, it would be great to see them make a real push at an All-Ireland this year.
I'd actually fancy Tipperary as well, but is there an argument at the same time that Galway, like they've been part of the big three for many years now, and with Niamh Kilkenny back into the team, Niamh Mallon's there as well, Eva Donoghue's still there as an experienced player, Carrie Dolan, you have Niamh Nyland coming into the team as well. I'm not sure she related to Evan Nyland. I'm not entirely sure of that. But like if like Galway could easily turn it on. Like they haven't been probably in their best form in the league. But usually when these sides get to Croke Park, the Galways, the Kilkennys and the Corks, they usually just turn it on. So is there a chance that Galway could do that this weekend as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose Galway are a side that have been there and done it more often than Tipperary, and those kind of things, like being in Croke Park, having getting over the line, and in previous big games, like it does stand to you. As you said before, like Niamh Kilkenny coming back in, like serious player, obviously for Galway to bring back in the side. Carrie Dolan's obviously been flying the Galway flag for a good few years now. So yeah, like I think it could be massive for Galway, and it really could stand to them. And we have seen a lot of these games down the years where one team is maybe coming in looking a little bit better, the other team maybe more experienced but not in the same type of form. Maybe Galway are looking ahead to championship and everything else, and maybe that's been their primary focus. But it definitely could stand to Galway, and it could maybe be the difference if they were to go over the line.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going for Tipperary winning this game. Denise actually asked the question: is Caught injured or just absent until May? I actually don't know the answer to that, Denise, for 100% certainty. But I do think Sarah Donovan did say it off the ball this morning that she is out until May, and she was missing for the whole league campaign as well. I think she got married in the league campaign in the midst of it as well. So yeah, I think she's just been missing until May. I don't know, is it an injury or whatnot, but she will be back in May, it looks like. You mentioned the last time that Galway, Kilkenny or Cork didn't win the All-Ireland, who were the side to win it? The answer to that is Wexford, and they've dropped like a stone in recent years, but they are at the Division 1B final this weekend against your own county, Dublin, on Saturday at 2 p.m. on the official YouTube channel in Camogie, and this is on an SETU Carlow rather than Croke Park. Just before we get into the stats and scores for this game, what are your thoughts on that? It's Westmeath and Derry, the Division 2A final. That's the third tier. That'll be the curtain raiser in Croke Park on Sunday rather than this game. And especially with the Dublin footballers playing against Meath later on the day on Sunday. What are your thoughts on this? Should this have been the game to be in Croke Park as the curtain raiser?
Yeah, probably would have made more sense. You have Dublin fans in there already. I don't really know, to be honest with you, why they haven't gone with that. Is it a case maybe that they know that Dublin fans are already going to be going anyway, so it's an opportunity to get more money in from other counties? Do you know that way? Like, I think there's already going to be a lot of Dublin fans at the game. Would they go in that early and then stay for all three games? I don't really know. Like, so it's it probably is, you know, being in Croke Park like for what, 6 hours, like that's a long time if you're going for this game, and then, you know, the league final, and then obviously stay for Dublin Mead as well. And when the Dublin Mead game will probably be over at half time, let's be honest. So you know, like it probably is one of them. But yeah, I don't really know why they haven't done that, to be honest. It is a little bit unusual. Kind of doesn't really make any sense. But again, that is the GAA, unfortunately, you know.
It's the Camogie Association, you could say, as well. But
Yeah.
we'll move on to the scores for Wexford against Dublin. And Wexford have been absolutely brilliant this campaign. They beat Dublin the first day out 215 to 17 points. And you look at the second scoreline on the screen, no, that isn't a typo for me. That actually happened. Wexford 12 goals and 20 points. Antrim 4 points. Yeah, I can't believe it either. They beat Down 211 to 5 points. Beat Kerry, trashed them as well, 415 to 3 points. And then lost to Limerick in the last game, but it mattered little in that last game of the season. They've averaged 4 goals and 16 points per game, which is actually scary. And they've conceded an average of 1-7 per game. And you look at their scores here, their top scorer is Ciara O'Connor with 3 goals and 36 points. Shelley Kehoe with 3 goals and 10 points. Emma Tompkins, I think in her first year, nearly playing senior, scoring a total of 4 goals and 2 points. Sal Doyle with 3 goals and 4 points. You have Joanne Dillon there, Ainish Curran, Sarah O'Connor, Kate Kieran. You have some very good players in Wexford, and that's 21 goals they've scored, which is absolutely incredible. As for Dublin, they've obviously lost to Wexford the first day, but won 4 games in a row after that. They beat Kerry by 214 to 9 points. Beat Limerick, that was a brilliant win for the Dublin team, 114 to 9 points. Beat Down, hammered Down, 316 to 1-1, and then beat Antrim 16 points to 9. They've averaged a score of 116 per game and conceded an average of 1-7 per game. And you look at their top scores in Aisling Maher with 30 points. And interestingly, and I'll get onto this kind of in a sec, Aisling Maher is actually playing as a centre-back rather than a forward this year. So quite an interesting one for the Dublin management. Aisling O'Neill with 114, Aoife McCartney with 112, Niamh Comerford with 1-5, Emma Flanagan with 2-2, Grace O'Shea with 6 points. Very good scores for Dublin. But as a Dublin fan yourself, would you be confident going to this game? But look at Wexford's scores. It looks like Wexford are going to win this final at Cantor, but then in finals, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, from what I've seen, you probably would look towards Wexford as the favourites. Like, even when you look at it, like they beat Antrim by 52 points, and we beat them by 6. You know, like, so like it is a little bit mad, all right, when you kind of compare and contrast those two scenarios. But yeah, look, I mean, in fairness, like as you said, like Aisling Maher's been very good. Aoife McCurney's been very good as well. Aisling O'Neill. You know, and I think from a Dublin perspective, they need to get back up to Division 1A. Like, it needs to be the priority for Dublin to get back up there and be competing for top titles and everything else. And yeah, look, it would be tough for you. You probably would edge towards Wexford, but look, I'll predict Dublin. Why not?
Of course, you will predict Dublin, but yeah, I think Wexford will win this game. Like, they look really good in this campaign. Ciara O'Connor has been brilliant in form. The likes of Sal Doyle, the likes of Ainish Curran, like, I can't see anything past the Wexford win. But before we move on to the other Camogie finals, a name that's missing out of the Dublin Camogie panel over the last few seasons is Ali Toomey. I think she went down to play AFLW. Like, she's a huge loss to the Dublin team. So without her to get to a Division 1B final, it's still quite a success for Dublin. But at the same time, they were in Division 1A last year. They got relegated. It's going to be the aim to bounce back straight back up. But for Dublin to perform well without one of their main players in Ali Toomey, like, it's still a good season enough for Dublin going into the championship.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, it will be a massive test, and I suppose, yeah, Ali has been, you know, like, she has been one of the core players for Dublin over the last sort of 4, 5, 6 years. So obviously, not having her available is going to be huge. And yeah, like, there probably has been a good few turnover of players over the last sort of couple of years, and that probably could affect Dublin obviously going into it. And as you said, with Wexford's scoring ability, and, you know, with the fact they could rack up a big score early on, I suppose the pressure is going to be on Dublin to see how they respond to it. So, yeah, be a massive test, and be interesting to see what happens.
Exactly. So we're going for both different predictions in that one. I'm going for Wexford, Aaron's going for Dublin. We'll see what happens. And just to cover the other three Camogie finals happening, it is Westmeath against Derry on RT2 at 12:30 in Crow Park. That's the first of the triple header involving Galway, Tip, and Dublin and Meath. So it should be a very good experience for those counties in particular. I think Jason Keelan is the PRO for the Westmeath Camogie team. So best of luck to Westmeath and to Derry for that matter as well. We have Laois against Armagh in the Division 3A final. That's on the official Camogie YouTube channel at 2 p.m. on Saturday. And you have Wicklow against Tyrone, the Division 4 final on Saturday at 2 p.m. And best of luck to all the Camogie teams taking part in league finals this weekend. And just to wrap up the podcast, there is the hurling championship actually beginning this weekend. No, it's not the Munster, Leinster, Joe McDonnell Cup. There is Christy Ring, Laurie Marr, Nicky Rackard, so just at the bottom of the screen there. So you have Sligo and Kildare, Tyrone and London, and Wicklow versus Derry in the Christy Ring Cup this weekend. In the Nicky Rackard, you have Roscommon versus Louth, Armagh versus Donegal, and Mayo versus Monaghan. And then in the Laurie Marr Cup, if you just see the games going across the screen there, you have Cavan versus Warwickshire. Should be an interesting game for Cavan. They did very well in the league campaign. Fair play to them. Longford against Lancashire and Leitrim against Fermanagh. So some interesting games there across the bottom of the screen there. So looking at all competitions, Aaron, like the Christy Ring in particular, you'll be very surprised if anybody but Kildare go up. Like they had a decent enough league campaign. Brian Dowling's their manager as well. They were so close to going to Division 1 last season. And then for the Nicky Rackard and Laurie Marr, Nicky Rackard, you'd probably go for Donegal or somebody, and then for the Laurie Marr, probably Cavan or somebody. So, yeah, Kildare would probably be the eye-catching team out of all those teams in those three competitions.
Yeah, one thing I would say actually is that hopefully on the Sunday game, with the fact that there is so limited championship games, obviously you have the Camogie finals on as well, but hopefully they do get to show something from the Christy Ring. Like I think, it is an opportunity. It is a weekend where they could show games from the lower tiers and everything else. And considering they've obviously had people on their show talking about it and everything else, I think it would be a great opportunity. Yeah, you would look towards Kildare most definitely in the Christy Ring. Undoubtedly the favourites. Obviously, it was a bit of a setback for them to be relegated, and probably something that not many people saw coming, considering how well they were in the league. But yeah, you would look towards Kildare. I think it's not make or break for Kildare necessarily, but it's just like, are they? Because we kind of envisaged that Kildare we're going to make the step up in hurling, and it just hasn't quite happened. So it'd be interesting to see, like, if they go back up from the Christy Ring, are they now a Joe McDonough level team? Can they push on? Can they make the next step? Because I do think that's the next aim, I think, for this Kildare team.
Yeah, definitely. So, and before we end the podcast, actually, do you think it would benefit these competitions to have these games streamed on Club or Stream Sport? If RT are not going to stream them, like, would it be a beneficial to those counties and these competitions that these games will be streamed on Club? Or I think it'll be a brilliant idea. Obviously, myself, yourself, and Seamus are planning on a video coming very soon on the improvements in GA, and I think this will be one of the ideas as well. So, do you think this needs to come in?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I don't see why it shouldn't. I understand maybe you can't get cameras at every ground and everything else, and obviously when you have loads of championship games, and I suppose when you've had league games and everything else, it's probably very hard to do. I understand that, but especially on weekends like this one, where like you've got 6 championship games, you've got 4 Camogie finals, 5 Camogie finals, and then you've obviously got and then you've got some of these games. Like there's no reason why they couldn't even pick out one game at least from every division, and make a feature game or so. And you could stream them to YouTube for free, which would be ideal. But look, if you could put them on Clubber, and you give the opportunity at least there for people to pay for it. Because I know it'll definitely probably be like Kildare playing Sligo again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's away from home. So like that's that's like to travel all, like to I don't know if it is in Markovich Park or where it is, but to travel there, like from Kildare, like that's a good bit of travel. So like you can't imagine there'd be a huge amount of Kildare fans going to it, especially when they're playing championship against Wicklow in the same weekend in football. So it just gives an opportunity for Kildare fans to actually see their other their other codes.
Yeah, exactly. And it would be a brilliant idea to have a streamed club, and hopefully that will come in. And hopefully as well, I agree with you completely what you said on the Sunday game. Like, you have to come over, you have relatively low games in the football, huge opportunity this weekend. Show one of the games from each competition and see that you care. Like, I think RTE, and I will say this, I've said this on many podcasts before on yours and James, I think they're a tad hypocritical when it comes to this, because they did a show about improving hurling. A way to improve hurling is showing these counties on your Sunday game highlights package show. That's the way to
Mm.
do it. Like, these counties put in as much effort as other counties. And I will say, off the ball, do atrocious work. Obviously, they have no rights to show the games. But I think Owen Sheehan went to the Fermanagh manager, and that epitomised, I think he had a stroke or something, and he still
Yeah.
was out managing the team. Like, it just shows like the commitment that is there with those counties. But hopefully that'll be improved in the next few years, and hopefully we'll have more of the knowledge in the next few seasons to, talk more about these games. But the way things are now, with RT not streaming them and things like that, our knowledge is basically not there at the moment, and it's just unfortunate. But hopefully it will be in the next few seasons. So that's the end of the podcast. So like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks to Capture Athletics for sponsoring today's show. Thanks to Aaron for coming on to today's show. Follow Gaelic Games Fan TV if you haven't already on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all them social media sites. And until the next video, lads, take care and enjoy the weekend's games.